Welcome back for another video. In this video we'll look at the best FPL transfers to make for Game Week 7 and over the next 5 game weeks, projected points are courtesy of FPL Review. Now that we're accumulating solid data of 6 game weeks played, I wanted to run through the data tables tool in Scout's members area and why it's so powerful. You can create your own tables with hundreds of stats available to choose from. However, all the data I mentioned in my videos comes from my tables and I've made them all public for you. Go to the public stats tables area and search fplfocal. You'll see positions, XG, XGC and some other useful tables. It's honestly a game changer to tailor them how you want. It's one of the many tools you get as a member. Click the link in the description below to become a member now. It's a double game week 7, so we're going to talk about that plenty as well. So let's start off with the goalkeepers. It's a double game week for Burnley and Luton. Burnley are away to Newcastle and then they've got Luton. Luton are away to Everton and home to Burnley. As such, Kaminsky and Trafford are top of the keeper projections this week. Is it worth spending a transfer there? This probably depends on a few factors. First of all, are you actually in a luxury position where there's nowhere better to spend a transfer this week? Secondly, something to ask yourself is this actually a player you want to be starting beyond the double game week? Luton's long-term fixtures are pretty poor, Burnley's a little bit better. Historically, these double game weeks involving lower league teams have had the potential to be traps and massively disappoint. This season, Burnley and Luton are 14th and 15th for minutes per expected goal involvement. However, you might be eyeing up a wildcard in Game Week 9 or 10, so that's also a factor. There are a few fixture swings then, which makes it a good week, and therefore it is an opportunity to take a short-term punt before the wildcard. If you're a Pickford owner, he's actually joint top with the double game week keepers excluded. He's playing home to Luton. Game Week 6 perhaps marked a turning point for the Toffees, defeating Brentford 3-1 away. Again, no clean sheet for Pickford, but an impressive result. There's actually good clean sheet potential this week, perhaps the best he'll actually have all season. Newcastle are home to Burnley next game week. Pope also projected 4.2, but he's ahead of Pickford over the next 5. 2 clean sheets on the bounce in the league for Newcastle. They also look to have turned the corner defensively. Pope therefore really good long-term option. However, you might actually get better value with a cheap keeper and then go with a cheap Newcastle defender like Botman or Burn. That's basically 1 mil saved over going with Pope and a 4.5 mil defender. So Areola's seen a second price rise, now 4.2 mil. Still a great pick, particularly if you're in a wildcard. Looking longer term using Scout's fixture ticker tool, Areola and Trafford actually rotate very well. If Turner can keep his spot, he also rotates well with Areola. On to defenders. Let's talk double game week defenders first. So we've made the point about how these double game weeks can be a trap. Realistically, what are their clean sheet chances? For both teams, it probably comes down to their second fixture. You'd imagine Everton probably score home to Luton and Newcastle probably score home to Burnley, so count on that second game when they face one another. Which double game week defender is the best then? The answer has to be Kabore. He's been the most attacking of them all, and he's got his first return of the season last match, winning a penalty that Morris buried. Only 0.8 expected goal involvement over the season, which is still poor relatively speaking, but if you want a double game week defender, he's the standout, and he's still only 4 mil. He's come off early 3 times this season, which could actually be a good thing. No substitutions before 60 minutes. All his subs so far have been after, so there's actually a fair chance of a bank clean sheet as well. So let's talk about Newcastle. Unbelievable result to close the game week, defeating Sheffield United 8-0 away. A new Premier League record as well, with 8 different players scoring. A clean sheet and attacking returns from Trippier, Botman and Burn. This one was absolutely brutal if you had no Newcastle defenders, myself included. Botman scoring his first Newcastle goal, Burn scoring his second Newcastle goal, all in the same game. Trippier with 3 assists as well. So they've got Burnley, West Ham, Crystal Palace and Wolves in their next 4. 4 decent fixtures, so if you're a non-owner, it's something to pay attention to. Comparing the next 5 projections of share and the double game week defenders, it really underlines what a short-term punt Luton and Burnley are. It's also worth noting that over the next 2, the Newcastle defenders are also projected to score higher than the double game week defenders, let alone next 5. Burn and Botman both miss out on the projections this week purely because of the double game week, but both great picks. Another defender that doesn't appear here but deserves a mention is Cash. 28 points so far this season, which makes him the 5th top scoring defender, and Villa have got a great run of fixtures ahead now. So Trippier is top on the projections. Is he worth 6.6 mil? Right now he's the highest ceiling defender in the game. It's a lot to pay for him though, and it depends what you can do with that money. If you could save 2 mil on Burn or Botman. If that lets you sell Martinelli for Son for example, a move like that is worth considering as well. If you've got Chilwell, it was his second benching in a row. He's an absolute sell now. You just need to find 0.8 mil to fund Trippier, and it's definitely worth a -4. Right, let's look at midfielders then. So many good options this season, but getting the points from the right players in the right order has proved tricky at times. One player who's not required any time in is Salah, returning in every game with 3 goals, 4 assists after 6 games. He tops the mids this week, Liverpool away to Spurs on Saturday. He's unbelievably far ahead on the next 5 projections, so if you're wildcarding now or in the next few weeks, he's basically a must-have. He's actually only scored 1 goal from open play, with 2 coming from the penalty spot, but nonetheless he has to be in your team. If you've already wildcarded and you don't have him, then put together a plan for getting him. If you can't get him this week, then Game Week 9 looks like a great slot, which is when they're home to Everton, and then home to Forest, and then away to Luton. Rashford with a disappointing blank last game week, Bruno scored a class volley to win the game for United. The week before it was Rashford who returned, and Bruno blanked. They're home to Palace and they're both high on the projections this week, so they're both a hold, unless you're clearing one of them out for Salah. So after an 8-0 loss, Sheffield United clearly a team to target. They actually registered a worse expected goals conceded than Luton in the Championship last season. They're away to West Ham, so Bowen's high on the projections and he's one to consider. He's 7.1 mil, which is pretty cheap, and West Ham have got good long-term fixtures themselves. What's going to be tricky for many of us is fitting Son, Salah and Haaland into a well-rounded team, especially if you're looking at Trippier as well. A brace for Son with well-taken chances against Arsenal. If you don't own him, then it's fine to avoid this week with them playing Liverpool. But in Game Week 8 they face Luton, and Game Week 9 they face Fulham. It's a pair of fixtures that are almost impossible to ignore. However, you might be alright with Maddison and not Son, or vice versa. A couple of blanks on the bounce from Mbeumo now after a strong start to the season. However, Brentford face Forest this game week. He's still an excellent FPL pick, no need to rush to sell. Onto the forwards, and it's actually Morris top across all players in the league with 7.2 points projected. Haaland's close behind second on 6.9. One thing worth bearing in mind is his 2 goals this season came from the penalty spot, which isn't a reliable source of points. It's a nice feather to have in the cap of an FPL asset, so to speak, but you want them to be putting up good numbers outside of penalties, and that's not been the case for Morris so far. 0.94 non-penalty XG, which ranks 57th in the league. In other words, after 5 games played, he's not taken shots of enough quality to have expected to score once in terms of XG, 0.94 non-penalty XG. He's racked up 0.4 for expected assists, so he does have a bit of assist potential. But again, if you're eyeing up a Game Week 9 or 10 wildcard, then he's perhaps a reasonable short-term punt. Or perhaps if you've got a third forward like Mubama who's not playing, then you could afford to upgrade him and then bench Morris after that. That's an option as well. Unfortunately, Foster serves the last game of his suspension against Newcastle, so it's basically a single game week for him. He returns for the Luton game. The transfer curse continued last week then. Alvarez was the most transferred in player last week, 1.3 million new owners, and he came off early for a 1-pointer before 60 minutes. No cause for panic though. Rodri's red card basically changed the game completely. Doku was also sacrificed early. He took 2 decent shots, and there's every chance he returns had that game remained 11v11. Looked like it could have easily ended up 4-0, but instead City's priority was to see the game out and man down at 2-0. As a reminder, there's League Cup fixtures Tuesday and Wednesday ahead of Game Week 7, a lot of Premier League teams involved midweek. One other player to talk about is Watkins, who is a great transfer this week. He'd been putting up good numbers all season but failing to find the back of the net, but against Chelsea finally got his goal. Again, a great run of games ahead for Villa, and he's slightly ahead of Alvarez over the next 5 projections, but obviously 0.9 mil more. It's close between him and Alvarez for the best striker to pair with Haaland. However, a front 3 is also a good option, but given how stacked the midfielders have been, it's hard to find room. Saka, Maddison, Salah, and Mbeumo, Son, Bowen, etc. all really good picks, and some of them are cheaper. Strikers are all about confidence, and now Watkins has netted, he could easily hit a run of form with the upcoming fixtures, not one to overlook. So that concludes this video. Thanks for watching, and if it was helpful, hit like and subscribe for more FPL content to come this week. See you soon for the next one.